I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my ground. Girl on fire. I've made a choice. I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that.
Lynette Oxley here for Ghosts and Girls on Fire 16 Days of Action for No Violence Against Women and Children. I'm here with a very good friend, Tania. We've known each other not that long, but it was sort of a click at first sight.
A soul connection.
Soul connection, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and you're a conveyancing attorney, but that is what pays the bills, but your passion and how did you get to this point in your life that you're helping quite a lot of other people? Where did you grow up, etc., etc.?
Okay, firstly, thank you for having me, Lynette. I'm really honored that you've decided to include me in your program. 16 Days of Activism, I love that you say, and as you know, I've also followed suit, it's 16 days of action because it should be 365 days. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, we need to change that narrative, most certainly. So, Lynette, I grew up very humble beginnings, grew up in the rural area, farm area, went to a primary school where we were only 200 kids from grade A. Those years it was sub A, remember? So from sub A still standard 5, a dual medium school, English and Afrikaans. And my father is a racehorse trainer. And that is relevant because that is how I met Barry Steenkamp and June Steenkamp. So my father's a racehorse trainer. I am one of 5 siblings. My brother is a jockey in Johannesburg. My other brother is a racehorse trainer here in Gqeberha. So as you can say, yeah, I come from, that horsey background. And my mother has always been involved in charity. So she would, when they wanted somebody to remember those days when they would shake the can, she would shake the can, and she did so for the Association for the Physically Disabled, and started as a volunteer and eventually became the director there. She worked herself up from the receptionist to that position. And she taught us from a very young age that you give back to the community. You help others, you help the less fortunate. You must be inclusive with what you're doing. So my 2 sisters are both CAs, and I have 2 children, and they are my biggest blessing. Very, very blessed. My son is in the industry that's foreign to me. He is a programmer, and my daughter is also a CA. So that's my background. So how did I get involved in the work that I do? As I alluded to earlier, Barry Steenkamp was also a racehorse trainer. So when I was a student, I worked for my dad as a stable assistant. I would help him on race days to saddle the horses. And there I got to know Barry and June to a lesser extent at that point in time. So when Reeva was very tragically killed, murdered, whichever one you want to choose, her June and my stepmother coincidentally were best friends. And the attorney that represented June at the time, things didn't work out so well. And as you said earlier, I'm actually a conveyancing attorney that pays the bills. And they reached out to me and asked me whether I wouldn't please get involved and guide and help June through and Barry through this whole, the legal procedure and so forth. So no, I didn't appear in court. I didn't have to appear in court because the state is the one that had to prosecute. But what I learned there is the value of supporting a victim, the value of them having somebody that can hold their hand and explain to them the things that we take for granted, but the basics. And by empowering them with that knowledge, by empowering them with knowing what the next step is, it does help. Even if it's just a little bit, it does help them to walk the road. And you, I'm sure, have experienced that with the people that you work with as well. Your victim is lost. They
Absolutely.
didn't choose to be in that position. And they feel often like the stepchild of the legal system because they're the law-abiding citizen that did nothing wrong. And then this horrendous thing happens to them. So that's where my journey started. And being in that position, I realized that, sometimes a window opens and you can choose whether you're going to keep the window open and just keep it open, or you're going to open the door for that new, opportunity, for lack of a better word. So I embraced that and saw that there was definitely a gap, if I can call it that, a need that needed to be filled. I then, together with June, we established the Reeva Steenkamp Foundation. And the idea was then education, because that's what I thought and saw. That's where we need to start. If you educate people about their rights, if they know what they can expect, if they know what they can do, because often, let's take a woman that's been being abused by their partner, they don't realize they can they can be a criminal charge that they can lay, and of course they can get a protection order. So they don't only have to do one thing, they can do two things. Some women don't even know that they can do anything. So that's what we thought that was and is our mission, education. And then, of course, from that, we believe that it starts with the younger generation, bullying and abuse. So that's what we did as the Reeva Steenkamp Foundation, of whom I'm the CEO and also a trustee. And because of that, I then became involved with other organizations who reached out to me, or I reached out to them. And I absolutely believe in collaboration. I don't think any one organization can do what needs to be done because it's just so big. The pandemic is so big and the need is so huge out there. So because of that, I got to know Celeste of Optimistic Bikers Against Abuse, and she introduced me to Olivia, our dear beloved late Olivia Jasriel. And when Olivia and I became friends, I invited her to be a guest speaker at our annual breakfast. And because of that, and at that time, it was the time of the parole of Bob Hewitt. He was eligible for consideration. And Olivia then decided, she had been with another attorney's firm in Joburg, and she then decided that she wanted me to be her attorney and represent her. And that's where my journey with parole started. And I had to spend many hours, many late nights to educate myself because it was such a new thing, and or to me in any event. And I have been very surprised by the doors that they have opened, because I didn't realize that there was such a need. And yeah, and it's been an absolute blessing for me and an absolute privilege to have taken hands with so many victims and to make their journey a little bit easier.
But that makes your journey a little bit more difficult. You've made friends and long-lasting
Yes.
friends because you've become very much involved in the people that you represent. It's not just the client; they don't stay clients with you. So it's not it's a journey that does have a toll on you. I'm pretty sure. It's not easy, but but you've made a difference, and I think that is what may we live in times that we actually can make a difference to other people's lives, and I think you have. Let's just go back in terms of the
Thank
parole
you.
system. If you look at, so currently, we had you started dealing with Bob Hewitt in that regard. are dealing with the Matthews case at this stage. I think there's also a fight about parole in that sense. Alison Botha, which we recently had a brain aneurysm, and I'm pretty sure it's from the stress of her perpetrators being released, and she was not even asked
Yes.
for a victim as a victim to be involved in that, and they said they would do it. So the parole system is definitely failing in South Africa. Am I correct to say that?
Absolutely, Lynette. And you know, I just want to, yes, you said they're not clients, they become my friends. My daughter, when she was at primary school, she's now almost 30, once said to me, Mom, do you have any clients? And I was quite surprised. And I said, yes, of course I do. She said, but they're all your friends. And that is the reality. I love people. I love helping people. And yes, I have become friends with all of them. I don't regard them as clients. And but I also think that that's the important thing for in the journey for the victim, that you know, they mustn't just think you're doing a job, because you're also doing a job. But being personally invested makes a huge difference to them as well. That's my experience. But yes, Lynette, to get back to the parole, it is, I've said before, when people ask me about the law, we have South Africa, our laws are actually quite okay. We've got wonderful laws. The problem is it's not being implemented. You know, if you go to the police station, if your victim goes to the police station to lay a charge of, say, domestic violence, how many people do you know that have been shown away? It's shocking.
Absolutely.
Why? Why? They shouldn't be shown away. So now let's go to the parole. So we've got these policies, these laws, but it's not being implemented. Example, and let's take Olivia with the Bob Hewitt matter. You know, when we started following up, I say we because Advocate Hanley Bakker and I instructed her, and we both started following up, and we couldn't get through. Do you know that the Department of Correctional Services at North End, where Hewitt was being incarcerated, had one telephone line for all those people? It was they didn't have an email that I could write to. So eventually managed to get through, got hold of this gentleman. I don't want to name names because he's been vilified in the press many times, you know, at that time. And he told me that a parole hearing still had to take place. In the meantime, one day after that conversation, one of the other victims had also asked me to represent her, emailed me a letter to say that parole had been granted to Hewitt. So this person lied to me, first of all. And then secondly, he already knew because he had addressed the letter to the other victim. So the system failed the victims in that, number one, they were not informed of the parole hearing. So their constitutional right to make representations at that hearing was disregarded. So we managed to then, of course, I'm sure you know, we managed to get that set aside. It was referred to the minister, who made a decision to refer to the parole review board, Judge Desai, and that was a huge honor for me, I must say, appeared before him, where we argued that, you know, Olivia and the other victims had registered as required by the law, and their constitutional rights were disregarded. So then, of course, it was set aside and a fresh hearing had to be held. And here comes the interesting thing. One would think that now they would get it right. So when we appeared before the parole board, unfortunately, the seating, it's in a very confined space. It's in a confined room. That already is secondary victimization. It's already a traumatic event for the victim to face their perpetrator. Now they face them in a confined space. And then it was so badly organized that Olivia ended up she ended up next to Hewitt. So we quickly started swapping chairs and things to make it comfortable for her. So unfortunately, I wasn't sitting close to the chairperson, and I'll tell you now why it's relevant later in my story. So we went through the process where Olivia felt extremely victimized. Bob Hewitt was staring her down to such an extent that I objected, and I said to the chairperson, I object to the way that he's looking at Olivia. He was trying to intimidate her. And the chairperson then spoke to him. Oh, sorry, I missed out something. I got permission as per the requirements for 2 other people to be present. And the parole chairperson had emailed me and said yes. But when we got there, she denied it. And she wouldn't let me go to my vehicle because I had thick files, A4 files. She wouldn't let me collect my file from my car to show her that she had proved. So 2 of the significant others, which is the description in the act, were not allowed. That's another failure, So just to go back, so we went through the process. We were excused at some point in time so that the parole board could make the decision. And when we went back, they had decided that Hewitt would be given parole. And of course, Olivia was devastated. But when we got to the car, Olivia and the colleague that I had taken with said, you know what? That decision was pre-typed. Now, what a farce. What an insult. Olivia had spent all that money to come from Johannesburg, traveling, accommodation, the emotional, just for it to be pre-typed.
It's not about the money. That we know that monster, Bob Hewitt, was in her life and never got out of it. And then she was taken there, and it's that further victimization which makes me angry, because the monster that's been on her shoulders her whole life, and there this person is further victimizing her, and it's just not right.
Absolutely. And Lynette, that's why I say that's a life sentence.
It is.
I always say, because that's my experience. My experience with the victims is it's a life sentence. They never get over, for Olivia as a child, that abuse. We all knew the effect that it had on her. We know from other people that we deal with. And for somebody that has lost a loved one that's been killed, they never get over it. So that was unfortunately, yes, I did take it further. I did write to the department, but unfortunately at that point in time, Olivia was tired. She said to me, you know what, please, she just wants to get on with her life. And it's not for me. Remember, I'm a creature of instruction. I take my instructions from my client. And she didn't want to pursue it at that time. She later regretted it, but at that time, it was the right decision for her. Her body and her soul could not take any further victimization and further
trauma.
I mean, she suffered from post-traumatic stress from that incident. Yeah. So that's Olivia. So that's where the parole process failed her. And I wish I could say to you it was an isolated incident, but it's not. I also, for the Harmsa matter, that's the one, the samurai sword killing. When he became eligible for parole, I'm smiling because the family reached out to me, and I said to them, because Olivia's thing was such, in the papers and all that, and I said to them I would help them with the greatest of pleasure. And yes, I did draft the opposing papers which they submitted to the parole board, but I said I would do it anonymously for them at that time. And then on the second time round, they were not considered. They were not told that there was another parole hearing. They also reached out to me, and I explained to them what they could do, but they also decided, you know what, they're just going to let it go. Ina Bonet is the
do
you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, she's actually, I'm having an interview with her this coming weekend. So.
Oh, lovely. So Ina, I met her when we were both guests on the Visnis program, and she did not know that she must register with the department for when her perpetrators are considered for parole. So my question is, where's the education? So it's on us. We must, as the public, must educate, but it's not. It's the Department of Correctional Services. The system is failing our victims. I've written to the department in Ina's matter so many times because I'm trying to find out where all the perpetrators are. And I just don't get a response. The
I
psychologist, sorry,
no, go for it.
the psychologist contacted her and said to her that she must participate in a victim-offender dialogue. Now, I can tell you, even with Barry, when he went to meet Oscar in the victim-offender dialogue, Lynette, the trauma, although Barry always wanted to meet Oscar, the trauma is very big. It's something that he had sleepless nights about before and especially after. It's almost an inhumane thing, but I do understand where it's coming from. It's supposed to be for the victim. So the victim can choose whether to do it or not. But in Ina Bonnet's case, the psychologist said to her she can only say no once and then thereafter she must do it. That's shocking. And it's unacceptable, and it's not true. So again, it falls on people like us to educate people about their rights. When those professionals that's working for the department, they should be doing the education and they should be following the law. So that was also a huge eye opener for me, that the system continuously just failed us. And when you're ready, I'll speak about Alison, of course.
Yeah. So I would like you to speak about Alison, but we're talking about, and so Alison is another one. We know Jessica Lawrence, which is somebody that I've become friends with, which I've interviewed a couple of times now. The parole system failed her. So yeah, it's not an isolated case, and we're talking about people with quite public cases where people know about their cases. We're not talking about the people that we're not hearing about. The man on the street, the woman on the street, that is also treated in exactly the same way. So yeah. So what is happening with Alison? Because I think it's also something that's followed her, and she's been trying to get out of it, and then the guys come out on parole. So please tell us what's happening with that.
Yeah. Now that I think what makes that one so important, not that anybody else's matters are less important, is that it gives us the opportunity to educate. I see these cases as opportunities to educate the man in the street, as you say. So in Alison's matter, and I was very impressed when Alison instructed me to act on her behalf. I asked her for correspondence. Did I regret that? Emails and correspondence. I was absolutely in awe. From the beginning, it just again showed Alison, she's just such a phenomenal person, and I'm in awe of her journey, because she made a mind decision that she was going to survive that attack, and she did so with this incredible, and with the parole also. She wrote to the parole board on numerous occasions over the years, and she was able to provide me with all that information. So Alison did what other people didn't know they must do. She registered to be considered or to be advised the same way Olivia did. But the department failed her. Yes, she did previously submit her representations, but nowhere does it state that you only get one bite at the cherry, so to speak. Nowhere does it say once you've been you've given your representations to the parole board, you're not invited to participate again. And that's what they did. They totally disregarded her. So Alison was sitting at home in front of her PC and received an email from the department to say, oh, by the way, these guys are getting out, or there's only the one was getting out in a couple of days. And then some journalist phoned it and asked her for comment that he had heard that the other offender was also going to be paroled in a couple of days. So it was a huge shock to her system. And Tian, who is at the time he was a veterinary student when he found her, next to the road, and he's a huge friend of Alison. And he absolutely believes, and I believe it too, after speaking to Alison in person, after her brain aneurysm and her brain surgery, that she was so stressed after their release. She was living in fear constantly. Her life changed because she was scared to go out. There was a false sense of security while they were still incarcerated. But the moment she heard that they were getting out, she feared for her life again. And when she was in hospital, and I visited her in hospital at the end of October, myself and Advocate Hanley Bakker, the first thing she said to us, can they get in here where she is? Because her biggest nightmare, and she had nightmares, her biggest fear is that they would come in and she's not capable, physically capable of defending herself. That's the first thing she said to us.
How sad is that?
It's extremely sad. So again, with Alison, we have taken steps. We are asking the minister to review the parole of these two offenders, because there's no doubt that proper process wasn't followed. And there's no doubt in my mind that these two are not rehabilitated.
Was it before they've also attacked it? This is not it was probably the worst incident, but it was not the only incident. Am I correct?
No. The psychologist report says that they are serial rapists. So how can serial rapists be regarded as rehabilitated? Because I don't think they are rehabilitatable. So sadly, Lynette, I believe that the effect of these two offenders being released on parole has most certainly caused Alison severe emotional trauma. So she's had, unfortunately, she had surgery because she had a brain aneurysm. She was attended to. We're very grateful for that. She had a brain surgery in a big state hospital. She was transferred back to where she lives, and I'm so grateful to the public. As you know, we established a fund because Alison, her income is derived from the talks that she does, and which she gets paid for. So she's not capable of working. She is, and won't be for quite some time. Her rehabilitative journey is going to be quite a long one, which is why we established the fund to cater for her rehabilitation. And Lynette, thank you to you. I want to place on record how grateful we are to you, who also came to the party to help us with people reaching out, because it's bank confirmation, and a lot of the media, they're not allowed to put the bank information. So thank you to you and to GOSA for, I know it was and it is a lot of hard work, and it's those, I always say, we need to thank those people, the behind the scenes. There's so often people behind the scenes that do so much and that people don't know about, and nobody wants that recognition. But I want you to know that Alison is extremely grateful, and she's going to still thank you in person. I spoke to her this morning after her second surgery, successful surgery. And so you can expect that call very soon. I'm very happy to report.
She's absolutely a fighter. And what you said is the public came to the party. I was absolutely amazed. And there was some big donations, but there was one lady, I think, that came through and said, I can afford 50 rands, but I would like to do something.
Lynette,
that is amazing.
Sorry,
to me.
No, not 50, 15, 15.
Right.
It touched my
That
heart.
touched me as well.
You have no idea. Obviously, when I told Alison also, I mean, we had tears in our eyes, because isn't that just the beauty of humanity?
Absolutely. And there's some good people still around.
Absolutely. No, we are very, very blessed that, and she's so grateful that so many people, she was totally taken aback. She didn't know about the fund. She wasn't aware for quite some time. And she's so grateful because it gives her hope for her future. Otherwise, I really don't know what would have happened. But to come back to the parole, the implications, if I may mention, please, you mentioned earlier the Lee Matthews matter. And that matter with Rob and Sharon Matthews, where Donovan Moodley was also eligible to be considered for placement, that matter also made me realize the huge flaw in the system or in the process, because, and that is the change that I'm advocating for. That is the change that I want to make. That's the change that I think the legislature must make, is that when you as a victim are invited to make representations at that parole hearing, you have no information. You can ask for copies of the reports, the psychologist's reports, the social worker's reports. You can ask, but the department is only allowed to give it to you if the offender agrees thereto. So let's say we have a victim that is willing to accept and forgive the offender if they know that that person has been rehabilitated. They only know that the moment they go and sit there at the parole hearing. I think it's an unnecessary victimization. So we should, as victims, we should have access to those reports so that we can study those reports. And that's exactly what happened with the Charlotte van der Westhuizen matter, when the minister set aside the her ex-husband's parole. Because when they looked at the reports during the hearing, they realized he wasn't rehabilitated. And that's the same issue we have with every matter of parole. The parole chairperson has a thick set of a file in front of him. He reads through the report. He chooses what he thinks is relevant. And it's not necessarily that he has read through all the information. And that is why in the Donovan Moodley matter, the psychologist was reported to the Health Practitioners Council, and we are actually at the moment in the middle of a hearing. It's part heard. That was the week before last, and it's been postponed for because obviously we ran out of time. But we think that it's so vital that not only that the psychologist should do a proper report, but that we as victims have access to that report.
So, in terms of the new correctional services, Minister Peter Groenewald, he has made some remarks saying that in terms of parole, do you think these changes going to happen?
Absolutely. I am, as in awe as I am of Alison, I feel the same way about our minister. You know, it took me quite some time, years, to study the act, the policies, because it's so vast and there's so many court cases. I mean, the Johannes Vallis, you know, there's constitutional cases, and you have to really, you know, there was a change in the law. So there's just so much to consider. And I heard our minister speaking on TV, I heard him on the radio, and I was absolutely in awe of his knowledge. He has really made a huge effort to familiarize himself with the Act. And other than that, he has shown that he's going to make a change. I mean, you just need to see how many, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Where they go into the jails and they go and search for telephones and
yeah, that's already he's made an inroads on that those things already.
Yes,
so
yes.
I think
yes,
I think the will is there, which is the first step
absolutely.
in actually getting stuff done.
But I don't only think the will. I think it's the will followed by action. Sometimes people have the will, but they just don't follow through. But he's following through. The fact that he reviewed the Van der Westhuizen matter, the fact that he's also, Talib Petersen, the widow, he's also...
That was recently in the news.
Yes. So I think it speaks volumes. He's putting action into his words, and I absolutely respect him for that. And obviously, we're hoping in Alison's matter also that he will assess it as the new minister, because the decision was made by the previous minister, that he will assess it and that he will do what I believe is the right thing. And yeah, that should be reviewed. Yeah.
So do you
So
think that we're going to that you're winning, that there's changes in on the horizon?
yes,
That
absolutely.
uh,
I do believe that. I believe that, you know, sometimes you don't get the results that you want, and you see the same mistakes repeating itself. I also act for the victims in the Scissors massacre. I don't know if you remember which one. That was the one in the Western Cape with where two men walked into a gay massage parlor
yes, I
and
do remember
tried to
that.
kill
Yeah.
the 10 men inside. Yeah, and there
Yes,
was
I
one
do.
survivor, Quentin Taylor.
Yes,
So I also act for them. And surprisingly or not surprisingly, I also don't get responses from the department. So that is something that is going to change, because I believe that our minister is going to change that. Because I'm in a bit of a sensitive stage with the Alison matter, it's a bit difficult for me to do what I want to do now, because I have already addressed an open letter, and once the Alison matter has been finalized, I want to send that to the minister, and it will address all these issues. And I 100% believe that he's going to make a change. I believe that just by speaking out in the media, we are educating people. So if one person, let's take Ina, she didn't know. I've educated one person, and she will tell other people, and that person will tell someone else. If I can make a difference in one person's life, then I've made a difference, and then I'm happy that I've done that. But I do believe the winds of change is here.
because it is, as we said earlier, it's not. So we're talking about a couple of cases, maybe 10 cases that you're dealing with or more. But that is the thin edge of a very large wedge where there's a lot of stuff underneath, where the man on the street, the ordinary person, gets brutalized by the system over and
Yes.
over and over again. And hopefully, if we can make change here, the change can happen on
Yes.
on 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 for everyone.
Yes, so Lynette, if we can educate them so that they know they must go and register, if we can educate them so that they know that once they're advised, they have the right to either personally appear, or they can do, if they're too fearful, they can do it in writing. So then already we've done something great, because that empowers them, knowing
Yep.
that you've got a say, knowing that your voice, and that's the important thing, I think. For me, it's giving a voice to those that are often too afraid to use their voice. Because let's take Olivia. She was just so tired of fighting, So I could take the fight further for her. I could be her voice. And if the minister can just make the change besides the fact that I think that there must be a change, that we should have access to the psychologist's report. That's a different thing. But if the minister can just ensure that the law as it stands, that is adhered to, then we've already won, at least, maybe not the war, but a battle. And that will already help a great deal.
Is there anything else that you would like to add before you give us a message for the 16 days or the of action?
Of action. No, I just want to say, I think we all have it in us to make a difference. It doesn't have to be big, It can be, because people often say to me, "Gosh, you do so much," and I go, "I don't think I'm doing so much. I'm doing what I can, but you can also do something." Then they go, "No, I can't do what you're doing." You know what? You can, if you see a friend and you see we can pick up if somebody's being abused. You can pick if you just apply your mind, because often they say to me, you know what? I had a suspicion. Why don't you act on that suspicion? If there's a child that's being abused, besides the fact that it's a legal requirement that you have to report it, but do you know how many are too scared to get involved? And that's why I say we must be held accountable. You don't have to be vocal or an advocate or speak on TV or the newspaper or whatever, but you can keep your eyes and your ears to the ground and speak up for that victim that is too afraid to speak for themselves. That's what I want to add. And you asked, what is my message? So my message is the words of Albert Einstein, or he's accredited with saying that. He said that the world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who do nothing. I never want to be that person that does nothing. And I hope that everybody that listens to this, they also don't want to be that person. Be that person and do something, even if it's just a little bit.
I just want to thank you from other women and people in South Africa. You've done so much, and it must take a personal toll on you. It's not an easy road, but you stood up, and you stood up for so many people, and you stood up for those people that couldn't stand up for themselves. People like Olivia, people like Alison. Those people need somebody to stand up for them, because the world has given them a hard slap, which is not easy to get up from.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Very
It was absolutely awesome to speak to you, and we'll chat on WhatsApp soon again. And please keep us updated about what's happening with Alison.
I shall do, and thank you to you and for everything that you do. You are one of those unsung heroes, and I really value and appreciate you.
I'm a girl on fire, I'm not a victim, a girl on fire, I'll stand my ground, girl on fire, I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire, I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend, I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that I hold dear. Independent and strong, you will not keep me down, you can't break me. I'm a girl on fire, I'm not a victim, a girl on fire, I'll stand my ground, girl on fire, I've made a choice, I stand proud. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed, I am your equal. I've empowered myself, I have practiced and trained, fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard, we'll stand together. I'm a girl